Hi, and welcome back to the class, Harvard Journalists. You've made it to the very last section, where I just talk about best practices for working with our projects with GitHub. And these are just some suggestions on how to keep your GitHub repositories clean. So the thing to remember is that there are different types of audiences for your data and your methodology. So you always want to try to provide summarized data, because while it's excellent to include scripts that detail the cleaning and the wrangling process it took to turn raw data into the polished set that you've published, there's a larger audience of people who just want to download and play with the finalized data. So you want to make sure to include a folder in the repo that you can point them to, so they don't have to dig through your methodology to reproduce the summarized data. Something else that's important to include in your repos before you publish is a file called .gitignore. For example, this folder right here, r.rproj.user, is, I guess, individual only to me. This is only makes sense to my computer, and other people, when they download it, it just clutters your document, your repo. So to get rid of that, you can, before you commit, you need to just create a new file, go to text file, and you just type in the file that you want to ignore. And that means Git will not push this file to the repo. It will not track changes to this. So .rproj.user. So from now on, it will never push it up. It's already pushed it up already, though. So to get rid of it, you gotta follow some intricate steps, a few lines of code. You just gotta. There's a lot of people who deal with that, though, so it's not that hard to find on Google. But if you want to get rid of folders, then this is what you do. Also, what I did for my census key is I had it in a script called key.r. And so when I uploaded it to GitHub, all my lessons and stuff, it did not include, it was not pushed up there, fortunately. So if you are uploading a project and you've got a census key or another API key somewhere, be sure to host that somewhere in an R folder, in an R script, and then make sure you gitignore that so it's not included. Also, what you should do, get rid of like your R history sometimes. You want to gitignore that. And also, you want to be sure to gitignore files larger than 100 megabytes. This is very key, especially for folks like us who end up working with data files that are larger than 100 megabytes, because GitHub will refuse to upload and host that data. So you need to figure out ways around that. You might need to break up the files before you do it. You might need to pull from a site externally through the script, like a zip folder, like a zip file. Like some of the things I was making you download were zipped or were hosted externally as a zip, and then I made you download it and then run it. So there are scripts you can write to handle that. But just keep in mind, 100 megabyte plus files will inconvenience your life. Another good practice is you want to include readmes and data dictionaries. So this is an example of a readme. Alright, so when you put this into your base folder, GitHub will automatically render this. So this is what it looks like raw. So it's just pretty much markdown. I got some headers, I got a little bit of backmarks to indicate code, right, like this. And I've got little bullet points right here, and this is how it renders in GitHub. A good example of an organization that does this really well is BuzzFeed. They have tables, they got links to stuff, and every folder, every repo has like how they got the data, how the data is structured, and where you find it in the folder, descriptions of what every file includes and doesn't include, and where they got it, and they include the data dictionary. So it's very comprehensive, and it's useful for audiences who are who are more into the data than they would be with the story itself. So the last thing I want to recommend is please do not create monster repos of data. Let me show you an example. 538 data. Okay, what I mean is, this is 538's data folder. It's very popular. It's great. However, every subfolder is just pretty much just the data and a README to explain what the story came from, right? So this is useful if you just care about the data itself and you're trying to build an API. It does have, like, it describes the data variables. That's fine, but there's no methodology related to every individual project. So I would say try to keep every project individual. So you see here, these are projects that are individual repos, and that's how it should be, because if I want to download this or clone the project, I can just click on clone or download. Whereas in here, if I just cared about let's see, Data Avengers, I would have to, there's no download folder. I have to click on the CSV and then right click raw and then save my data. They save the data that way. So it's slightly a more involved process. And I think they recognize this because they have a whole new website where they kind of, right here, data.538.com, where they kind of replicate the BuzzFeed of method of keeping everything very everything organized with links to the repo and article, and the repo includes the methodology. So they have it here hosted on their website, where they have the info. I guess it'll go to the repo. It doesn't really have the methodology there, but it's easier for them to download individual zip files this way. So they had to build something externally, but I guess it's because they've gone so far with the data stuff. Anyway, they still do great work. I just don't recommend this process, especially if it's just a personal preference. Yeah. So I hope you can see just all the different methods that people are using to share their work. And I hope you pick one and you do something really cool and share it with everyone. Yeah, so congrats on getting through this section. And congratulations on getting through this entire course. We've gone through the introduction to R. We've learned how to import all types of different data and how R understands data structures. We've analyzed, we've wrangled, we've cleaned up, and we've transformed data. We've visualized it with charts. We've turned them into maps, interactive and static. We've done spatial analysis. And we finally learned how to publish it all online through GitHub pages. So, I hope you do some great work. I am looking forward to seeing it. And welcome to the R journalism community.